Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to the presentation entitled CQ. My name is Martin George and I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. Now I hail from sunny Orlando, Florida. You know, in Indiana they said there's more than corn in Indiana. I don't think they say there's more than sun in Florida because, you know, who wants anything more than sun? So, you know, today I hope this afternoon that we get a chance to unpack some topics that are relevant and interesting to you as you work internationally. You deal with people from all over the world in different countries, different nationalities. And some of you might even do it via phone calls. You might take trips there. You might have international communication through email and other things like that. So I hope some of what we do today is relevant and helps you to do your job a little bit better. So the first thing I like to do with everyone, when we have an audience like this, you've been sitting around all day probably, and you've been in the doldrums, is I want everybody to stand up and just put yourself in order according to your birthday. So but the only caveat is you can't talk. So you cannot talk to each other, and you have 30 seconds. So line up against this wall according to your birthday. So while you do this, obviously you can do this, and I'll talk while you're doing this. One of the things this goes to show is if you do not speak the language of the people that you're interacting with, or sometimes you wonder, do they understand what you're saying? Do they follow what you're saying? Do they catch your meaning? You have to see what they feel like and what it's like. You have 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, great. Well, as most of you know, if you read my dossier, I spent over 7 years in China. 我可以讲中文，这个我们可以就是说普通话。现在我们不用说英文，所以如果我们在中国现在，我是有到做，所以我没有告诉你我要你的生日是年还是月还是哪一天，对不对？对，所以我要开始在那边，我开始是1月份，然后1月份、2月份、3月份、4月份、5月份、6月份、7月份，我们要看一看，好吧？ So what I said in English, what I said in Chinese, I'll sort of interpret for you. So my background in Chinese, I'm going right to left. So in traditional script in China, I have a paradigm of what I think and what I believe and how I act and how I think. So of course we would line up from right to left. We would line up, so January birthdays would be down here, and then we would come this way. So again, in my paradigm, I'm half Chinese and I'm half American. We would never say our age. So we would never do it by the year. That would break all kinds of HR rules, and I'm really afraid of my HR person. How about all of you guys? We all are. So how about down here? What month and day were you born? Okay, April 1st?
June, I went birth date.
June, April, June?
July.
July?
July.
February?
February.
And then?
January.
January?
July.
July. What happened, guys? Why do I have January and July and February? Why do I have it mixed up? What happened?
You have to define birth date.
I knew what I meant.
What's order?
I knew what I meant. So again, guys, when we do cross-cultural interaction, a lot of what happens is we use our what we call first culture, C1. We use our L1, and then we use our own paradigms to sort of act the way we think is right. You know, if you come from a culture or a background where in your family you're used to hugging, then it's okay to hug other people when you meet them. Some families don't hug at all. They don't interact at all. They don't give kisses at holidays. They don't do anything. So when someone approaches you and tries to be affectionate with you, you're like, whoa. And so these things are ingrained in us, obviously. We don't even have to think about it. We don't even have to wonder. We just know. So I just knew from my paradigm, you were going to line up from the first month of the year. So why did you guys get January and July all mixed up here? Even in any paradigm, no matter what paradigm you're in, you're still kind of messed up. Why is that?
I thought we were doing January, February, March, April.
But you guys are doing age.
I thought we were doing age.
So we all came from a different referent, didn't we? All right, you guys can sit down, thank you. We all come from a different referent, a different background. And what happens, obviously, in that is there can be confusion, there can be frustration, there can be disorder. And so really what we want to help people to do when they have cross-cultural interaction is really get it right. So what could we have done to make that better? So some of the things I said you could not talk because sometimes oral communication is very difficult cross-culture. You know, but a lot of times writing something down, you could have written it down, you could have written your whole birthday, you could have drawn pictures, you could have also reached in your wallet or whatever, your purse if you had one, and taken out a driver's license or an ID card and showed your birthday and when you were born. And then you could have also tried to define how you were thinking about the object. You could have written down, I'm doing it by birthday, I'm doing it by month, I'm doing it by day. But a lot of times we just use what we think's right, don't we? I mean, people jump to like we're doing it by month, we're doing it by age, we're doing it by whatever. And so that's how we interact culturally. We just interact because it seems right, it feels right, so that's what we're going to do. So all of us know our IQ, right? Who has the highest IQ in here? Okay, I see it. Actually, everyone in the United States who's been in a public school can get their IQ. You know some of those numbers like 124 when you were put in reading groups, or 118, or 131, or 102, or for those in the back like 76. No, just kidding. Those were actually your IQs. And you can request your IQ from any state school in the United States. But we all kind of know our IQ, don't we? We know how we did on report cards. We know how we got grades and all that. And then, you know, we know if we're smart or not. Then what came along after IQ? EQ. And we knew if we were emotionally intelligent. And we know from a lot of research and study that men are very emotionally intelligent. Like out of 100, men are like 93, 94, and women are like 36. Right? Is that right?
No, possibly not.
Well, you know, it's not right. Actually, there's a lot of neuro-linguistic studies and a lot of studies out there that talk about how much of the brain we use and how much we activate and on what different subject. So for our EQ, usually women, sorry guys, but women usually have a higher EQ. They bring in emotions and feelings and other subjective things. Men are usually like, I do that, you know, and that's good, and we get it. So EQ was a big form of study. Have you guys studied EQ in school and know all about your EQ, and now you're all EQ worthy? Well, now we're doing CQ for cultural intelligence, and I'm not very good because C and I adds up to CQ. I don't know how that works. Ask my marketing department. I have no idea why it's not CI, but it's CQ. So we're going to talk a little bit about your CQ. Just take a look at that for a second. We're talking about our cultural orientation and the patterns and the values that we hold because of how we've been raised or what we know, just like we said. So one of the things I really think is important is for us to really examine how we look at the world. So these are two different people. We're going to look at the person on the right here. And what I want you to do is just give me some observations about the person at the right.
He's young.
Okay. Young.
Hipster.
Hipster. Young hipster.
Skinny jeans.
Young hipster, skinny
Probably
jeans.
works at a coffee shop.
Works at a coffee shop.
Probably doesn't make a lot of money.
Works at a coffee shop. Poor. You didn't say poor, but not a lot of money. Anything else? So you guys made a lot, that's great, you did a good job, thank you. So when we observe someone, what we're really looking at is, one of the things I like to ask before we go into this is, how many of you today, you're negotiating a business deal, an international business deal, how many of you want to sign up and do business with this person? Raise your hand. 0. I just spoke to an audience that had about 100 people. Only one person said they would. Why is that? And you know where the one person was from? Portland. And they said, I would. I want to do it. I want to sign up and work with them. But one of the things we have to differentiate is between observations, interpretations, and applications. Because based on who we are and what we believe, we come to some decisions. First of all, young. Is that an observation or an interpretation? It's actually an interpretation, because what I feel, I'm young. I'm only 40 and I'm very young. Not really. If you're watching this out there in any land, young can be defined very differently in many different cultures. So young's an interpretation based on our own paradigm, our own prisons, our own backgrounds, okay? And then hipster, again, an interpretation. You cannot observe and just observe, clean observe that they're a hipster. You infer it, you interpret it based on some of the things that maybe the necklace, the way they're standing, the glasses, the hat, things like that. Say skinny jeans, I have no idea what that is, so I'll just skip that. I don't know that. It's way past me. Works at a coffee shop. That's interesting, isn't it? Because we put people in genres. Like if you meet somebody who's in finance or accounting, you know right away they're dour, old, mean, grumpy, aren't they? Has anybody ever met anybody in finance that's fun and active and interactive and enjoys life? No, right? Exactly. Sorry guys out, if you're in finance, that's what we call a stereotype or a generalization. That's one of the things we want to avoid too. So when we're working with people from other cultures, we want to be very careful that when we meet someone, whether we're reading their writing, we're interacting with them on the phone, we hear an accent that's different than ours, we see someone that looks different than ours, we read someone who may have vocabulary that doesn't really use the kind of words, the semantics we would use. They don't use idiomatic phrases or phrasal verbs. And we read that and we say, I don't think the person I'm dealing with is very intelligent. I don't think the person that I'm working with really is going to be able to understand what I want them to do in this business transaction, just because English might be their second language, because of the way they phrase something, because of the word choice, because of the grammar, the syntax they use. And so really, what we did right here, and what a lot of people do, is we jump to an interpretation just really quick. I like the person or I dislike the person. And then our application is really like, I'm not going to do business with them. I'm not going to trust them. I don't think finance people are outgoing and friendly and whatever. And we make these assumptions based on whatever background and information we have. And so as we raise our cultural intelligence and as we get to know how people from different cultures interact, what they believe, how they use language, how they use, body language, things like that, how close they stand to different people, how they make gestures, we begin to understand that different isn't right or wrong or good or bad. It's not make or break it sometimes, but really what it is just that. It's just different. And so we want to help you to be successful in your intercultural communication, to really stop before you just say, they should work in a coffee shop. Actually, this guy's the CEO of a multi now. Could be though, couldn't he? Absolutely could be and should be. So what we do is we misattribute, we really put some things that we believe, our values, our underpinning beliefs, on to someone else. And so a lot of times when we have a larger group, and I won't do it here, is we have some people go through a little scenario where we have interactions between a couple of different groups of people. And what happens is when they're having a conversation, for example, if I assign you guys a project and I say, it's going to be due in 10 days, but you're from a culture that's a very hierarchical culture, which means you just take orders, you just do what you're told. How many days are you going to finish it in? 10. What if it's really a project that takes 30? Would you negotiate with your boss, your supervisor? Would you tell them that this really takes 30? Would you say this is unreasonable, or can we have more time? Or would you just try to do it, work as hard as you could for 10 days? Again, most people from a hierarchical culture, and we gave you a handout with different things like power and distance, individualism, things like that we'll get into in a minute. If you're from a hierarchical culture, or you're working with someone, maybe in your company, or you're dealing with a supplier, bless you, or a vendor, then you may think that project really can't be done in 10 days. I'd love to have it done in 10 days. But I wanted to have a discussion, because a lot of us who grew up and we set our values from the United States, we know that when we're given an assignment, we'll work together, won't we? We'll just say, hey, you know what? I know you want this done in 10 days. It's very complex. Do we have any other patterns or habits of how long it's taken? Can I collaborate with someone else? Can I turn in part of it within 10 days and get that working, get that in the pipeline? We sort of negotiate meaning, don't we? And we sort of interact with our team or our supervisor, because we're more of a flat culture in the United States. But if you come from a hierarchical culture and a paradigm, it's not that they think it's right or wrong, it's just that's what they do. That's what they believe. They would no more negotiate 10 days than the man in the moon. You know, they just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. So what can happen in that case? We get to the end of 10 days. The boss says, where's the project? The guy's really been working like 20 or 30 days, or 20 or 30 days worth of work in 10 days. Busting their hump, but they're not finished. They need one more day or 2 more days to finish it. So do you think the boss is going to champion them and say, great job, you did a great job? Or are you going to say, hey, I thought we agreed that this would be done in 10 days. Now if you work for me, I'm so loving and kind and gentle that I would of course negotiate and say, yeah, take another day, you've been working hard, I understand. But in a lot of cultures, or in a lot of companies, we just need to get on, don't we? We need to get it done. It needs to get out to the other people. You know, it's money. Time is money. And it's urgent and it's important. And so what we see a lot of times is that the supervisor is saying, where's the project? The person says, I'm not ready, I need one more day. And there's a huge conflict, isn't there? Whether it's between the vendor, the supplier. And then we have this underpinning either complete frustration, the relationship breaks down if it's within the company, and there's distrust, dissatisfaction. A lot of times, even the person may end up and say, I can't work at that kind of a company. It's just not for me. So we have to develop strategies that will allow us to check in and say, you know, how are you doing with that project? How far have you gone? How is it working out? You know, we have to have strategies that will take into consideration that somebody may be working in their second language. They may come from a more, you know, communal type of environment. They may be in an event-oriented culture that we'll get to here later too, and they may not actually think time's the most important. I don't know because of time whether we'll get to this, but I still remember when I was working in China. Worked in China about 7 years, worked for the State Department, some universities, and I was asked to be a plenary speaker in China. And they said, okay, you will speak from 9 to 11. I'm like, good. Got my PowerPoint slides. I'm all ready. You speak a lot. You're all ready. You got 2 hours worth of work, don't you? You have examples. You have everything. And so spoke 9 to 11. I get done. 11 o'clock, I'm like, great, take a break. We have a whole other list of speakers that are going to come after me, and they say, wow, this was wonderful, we loved it, great, Dr. George, after the break, 15-minute break, we'll have you come back and speak from 11:15 to 12:30. I'm like, I know China, I've lived in China now for 7 years, I understand the culture, and I'm still like, shit, what? I got to speak more, I don't have any PowerPoint slides left. But I can do anything for an hour and a half, as you can tell. I could probably talk for like the next 7 hours. And I know you guys planned out your day that we'll be here till about 7 or 8 tonight, right? So I'm glad. We'll just order in some food. So anyway, I get done speaking at 12:30, and everybody's having a great time, and it's wonderful like usual. We get to 12:30, and I'm like, okay, good. They say, okay, we're gonna move to another room down the hall. We're going to have lunch. It'll be at 1 o'clock. And we'll have Martin will come back and speak to the whole group at 1 o'clock. Real example, guys. Real. This is real. And I'm like, I can't say what I said, but you can imagine. And I'm thinking, I really do know China, but I'm not prepared. What in the world am I going to talk about from 1 to 2 o'clock during lunch? I thought, well, I'll just tell stories. Anybody can tell stories. So I speak from 1 to 2. Now, keep in mind, I like to eat, as you can tell. I haven't eaten since 9, haven't had much of rest. I've been speaking the whole day. So I get to 2 o'clock and I'm like, right, good, I'm done. All right, wonderful, let's go, rock and roll. I'm done. Person comes up, the moderator, and says, thank you, is that all you have? Are you finished? I'm like, really? Yeah, I think so. Are you sure? Do you have anything else you want to share? No. I'm fine. No, please, go ahead. I'm like, oh my goodness. This is true, guys. And so what happened? So I spoke another 30 or 45 minutes. I have no idea to this day what I said. Can't even remember. I think I blacked out. But every other speaker that was on the agenda just got moved down. Would that ever happen in your company or in the U.S.? That conference got over about 11 o'clock at night. Everyone who was from a Western country was mad at me. It wasn't my fault. But all the other speakers still got their slot. Everybody just got moved back because it was an event-oriented culture. And so in their culture, they wanted to continue to interact with, and they wanted to develop that relationship. They wanted to hear from, and be with people that they thought was really providing value at that time, and the agenda and the time be damned. And that's typically not how we arrange our agendas. When you're doing business internationally, you probably have an agenda, don't you? From 8 to 9:30, we're going to accomplish this. These people are going to be in it. But you need to be prepared that not all cultures think like that. There's not always an agenda. People want to get to know you. They want to know what makes you tick, who you are, what you believe. And then, things change. A lot of times in other cultures, you need to be prepared. Even in an email or a phone call, you may say, hey, I really want to know when that shipment's going to be here. And the person will say, yeah, I know. The weather's been great, hasn't it? I really enjoy the weather. We've been having a lot of tourism because of the weather. Yeah? Well, when's the shipment going to be in? I know, we are experiencing a boom in our country. It's wonderful. It is so great to see. Just, we're blowing it out. It's huge. Can't imagine it being any better. So, what's happening there? Do the people not want to answer? Can they not deliver? Are they giving us cues? Probably that things are going on. They're busy. There's a lot of tourism. They don't want to directly say no. In a culture like Japan, they have 19 different ways to say no. So first of all, you have to be aware that they could be saying something. And then dealing internationally, guys, you really have to understand that you have to develop strategies to get the answer you want. One of the strategies I've developed over the years in that way is I say, great, yeah, it's wonderful, you have a lot of tourism, everything's great, the weather's great. I just want to know so that you can get paid when I will receive my shipment, because I don't want you to have to delay your payment. Oh, payment. Now what is that? I want to make sure the finance department knows and you know, because I'll tell you one thing, guys, if you work internationally, payment still speaks very strongly in every culture, in every language. So you develop skills and you develop ways that you're talking international languages and you come up with strategies and you understand what's going on and you understand how to get over it. You don't sit back and say, oh gosh, I don't know what they mean. I'm so frustrated. I don't know if they're going to ship it or when they're going to ship it or what they're going to do. I sent them an email and they didn't respond, or they responded like the weather's great and we have all these things. When you're communicating internationally, keep in mind, keep it very clear. No idioms like we struck out, we have to punt. Make one point in an email when you're dealing internationally until you know that their linguistic ability is strong enough. Have one point in your email. Have bullet points, have deadlines for a feedback, ask them directly, and have a strategy like, hey, so that you can get paid on time, I would like to see when the shipment's going to occur. Send that email. If you have 3 points or 4 points that you want to make, send 3 or 4 emails. Really does work better. We in the United States, I could talk, if you can't tell, for the next 17 hours without stopping. I might drop dead afterward, but seriously, I could talk the next 17 hours and not take a break. And I think it's developed from the time we're very small, you know. We have to do show and tell, and we stand up in front of audiences, and we say, my daddy gave me this clicker, and this is very fun, and you point it, and it has a red light come out, and it's very good, isn't this good? Woo! Other cultures are a collectivist culture. They don't want to be separated or different. They don't want to be out. So even in the example I just gave about shipment, a lot of times what do they have to do? They have to check with their boss. They have to make sure that everybody else on the team is in agreement. They don't want to be like a nail sticking up that's hit down. They want to make sure everyone else, consensus building, we hear about that in Asian cultures, so we know that that happens. And so what we have to do is we have to give them time to work culturally how they're used to working. We can try to force it and say, yeah, we're individualistic, yeah, we learned how to do, you know, talk about this clicker for 17 hours, but it doesn't really accomplish the goals that we really want to accomplish, and that's to build bridges and to develop the kind of relationship that will enhance and ensure success in international trade, international business, international communication. So starting to develop an understanding of where you're at in the paradigm, what you're doing now, how you can improve, and so hopefully a lot of these things that we're talking about today will allow us to develop our cultural competence, whether it's person to person or in groups. And that we will avoid, you know, excluding behaviors, demeaning jokes, things like that. Really, CQ, if you read a lot about it, it is a 4-dimensional framework. And we'll go into it a little bit. We know why it's important because it's named as one of the top important skills. As you're working today, you know, Friedman said the world is flat or isn't flat, is flat. And so, you know, he said a long time, I already fell off the cliff, so I can't remember, I'm old. But, you know, we're all working internationally. We either have a coworker from another country, we are sending emails, we have a supplier, we're doing international trade, we're on the phone, we're doing whatever. Soft skills, hard skills. So cross-cultural leadership, cross-cultural communication is very important. And here's the 4 dimensions of CQ. I use the things below the blue box, which in like the light blue, and I say there in the 4 dimension, the first is motivation. Motivation is simply, do you give a damn? Do you care? So a lot of people are very, very happy to do business the way they've always done business, aren't they? You know, and even in our headquarters, hometown of Indianapolis, Indiana, we have a little company called Simon. They own a few malls across the country and the world. They just pulled out of China after 10 years and lost $250 million. Not sure that that's the biggest feather in their cap. But are we motivated? Are we motivated by money? Are we motivated by success or leadership? But there are real stories, guys, out there of companies and individuals who have had a lot of trouble working. I don't care what culture it is. I don't care if it's France, Germany, even England. One of the toughest countries for Americans to work in cross-culturally is England. We think we know the language, we think we know the culture, but the linguistic and the cultural differences and the psycho-socio-cultural differences between someone coming from England and the United States, huge. But we have to see, are we motivated? Do we care? Are we doing anything about it? And then second, we look at our cognition. So cognition is, what do you know, right? What do we even know? What have we learned? What have we been taught? What have we read? Not just on Wikipedia, not just Googling something, but what do we really know about doing business in Russia? What do we know about doing business with a French company? There are many French-owned companies in the United States. What do we know about interacting, being successful, interpersonal relationships? What have we learned? So today we will, in the second hour, we will go into Hofstede's cultural dimension, and we'll learn about all the things of individual power, avoidance, and all of these different topics that will help you be more successful as you're interacting with different cultures, because it'll list like 20 of the main cultures. Third is metacognition. I think of metacognition sort of like, Snoopy. I'm very erudite, I have a lot of wisdom, so I have to read the Sunday paper every week, and it's like the little bubble above Snoopy's head where it's really what he's thinking. It's the strategy. It's the inner language. So if I said to you, everybody close their eyes. Okay, go ahead and do it. Everybody close. You don't have your eyes closed. Okay. So close your eyes. Think of a dog. Think of how big your dog is. You get 3 choices, small, medium, or large, and then a color. So write down on your paper, you can open your eyes, and write down, is your dog small, medium, or large, and then what color it is. How many people's dog was small? Medium? Large? So research tells us that 64% of us will say that our dog is medium. What color was your dog? Was it white? How many was white? Nobody. How many was black? 1. How many was brown? Actually, research tells us 70% will be brown. What does that tell us, guys? I know this might be a silly example, but it's powerful, isn't it? This is not preempted, you see around. It says to us that marketing has told us that there are medium-sized brown dogs. And we must see more brown dogs, because about 80-85% of you raised your hand for brown dog. There must be a lot of brown dogs running around all the media. Nobody said white. 1 said black. And so guys, what happens when we have this metacognition, whatever we've been exposed to, how's the media portrayed the Chinese? How have they portrayed Germans or Russians? What do we believe and think about it? What is our inner language? What comes up when I say Chinese? Is it a very happy, romantic, wonderful sights and smells, Great Wall, beautiful city like Shanghai, amazing technology, fastest growing country in the world ever? Is these the kind of things that come up into your mind? Or are there other things? Maybe like from the Olympics, we saw a lot of pollution in Beijing, didn't we? And so what have we been exposed to? And I guarantee you guys, if I did on any topic, and I said, what metacognitively do you feel and think? What do you feel and think about me after 35 minutes? I haven't taken a breath, have I? What do you think about me? You'll say, oh, bald, fat, white guy. No, you won't say that. You'll say, oh, he's funny. He's nice. He's cute. He's wonderful. But you all have an opinion. You have an opinion. You form an opinion pretty quickly, don't you? You test that opinion, and then you continue to test it. And unless you get some outliers that says, when you're doing business with French companies, really what the media has told you or what you've read or what you've seen isn't exactly what's going to make you successful. So you check your facts, you check yourself. And then finally, it's just your behavior. So behavior obviously is very, very important. If anybody's watching the news lately, we have some people in our country that's behaving very unusually. So I will not comment on that. But you know, it is important to do cultural training, protocol training, to understand how to work and interact and deal with other people. And if you don't, people have opinions about you. And so our behavior, if we are used to standing like 2 feet away from someone when we talk to them, and then all of a sudden someone's standing 6 feet away when they're talking to us, we're like, do they not trust me? Did I smell? Did I not take a shower? What's wrong with me? Why aren't they talking to me? What's the matter? And then we start getting closer to them, and what happens? The other person's like, oh yeah, it's good. Martin, you're a very nice person. Oh great. Oh wonderful. Right? And then we think we really have a problem. Then we're really like, uh-oh, what'd I do? It's just cultural. It's cultural. And all of you have something that, you know, some distance that makes you feel comfortable. Not only in the literal way you stand, but how close when you talk to each other. When you speak with each other, you could use terms of endearment like, I love you. Southwest Airline. What's their stock symbol?
A heart.
LUV. But they do have a heart on all their planes. What's their company newsletters? Love letters. What's the CEO do? He goes around, tells his employees he loves them. Would that work for every company and every culture? No. But does it work for Southwest Airline? Yeah, because that's their culture. It's what they believe, it's what they do, it's who they are. And if you aren't comfortable in that environment, what happens? You probably self-select out. If you're not successful doing business with Korean companies, you probably self-select to not do it. After you've lost a little bit of money and you've spent a little bit of time and you've sent families. We work LTC Language Solutions, headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, is 1-800, no, I won't give a plug, but you know, we see so many people who get sent overseas. I was just talking to a company last week, I won't mention the company, huge company, over $1 billion, based in Texas. Dallas, Texas. If I give any more, it'll give it away. They're sending their first expats to Japan March 15th. They're doing no cultural training, no language training. Seriously, I'm on a call with them, with their HR training director. No, we'll be okay. We'll use some interpreters. They'll be okay. They'll get along. Families will be in the international school. It'll be fine. They'll do fine. And they send them. And we hear that every day. We hear it, you know, whether it's families being sent by their company. We're not really talking about touring, because a lot of us take a trip and we live in 4-star hotels and, you know, we eat French bread and we say oui and we think we're good. We're not talking about taking a 5-day trip. We're talking about living in a culture, doing business, interacting in a significant way, cross-culturally, where we don't make faux pas and cause international incidents, and not only that, but we're successful. So our behavior does have to change, because let me just give you a hint, and all of you are American in this room, everything Americans do don't fly that well in every country overseas. They don't think we're like cuddly teddy bears. They kind of think we're like a little bit loud sometimes, a little bit obnoxious, a little bit arrogant. I'm not trying to make you mad. I'm just giving you what I've heard. It's not that I believe it. Don't shoot the messenger. And that we're very individualistic. We'll do anything by ourselves. We'll go anywhere. We know everything. Did you know that? We know everything. You can see by our leaders in our country, can't you? Again, I make no statement. But if we want to be successful, our behavior on the telephone when we're talking international has to change. Our rhythm, our intonation, our pausing. Do you know that the United States is something and I'm sure you know this, we are called a negative pause culture, which means person A speaking, and what does person B do? They cut them off. Before person A speaks an utterance or a sentence, person B starts speaking, and oh yeah, I remember when I went to Spain, and yeah. Person A is like, oh yeah, and then it goes back and forth, doesn't it? Not every culture is like that, guys. They're called positive pause cultures. And in a positive pause culture, they'll say, when I was in Spain, were you successful in Spain? How'd you feel with that pause? Did you feel like I had, it's uncomfortable, isn't it? I mean, in America, we don't even have a 1 second. I just did like 7 seconds and you guys were sweating. But actually some cultures, believe it or not, write this down. Some cultures think before they speak. They think about what they're going to say. They actually take pauses between communicate. They let one person actually finish their thought, and then they let the next speaker speak. I know that's novel, but write it down. I can prove it linguistically that it actually happens. And I remember when I was in China, I was like, hey, blah, blah, and they'd be like, I could tell. Would you shut up? I could tell. I'd be like, whoa. But I learned. Can you believe that I would shut up? No comments. That's rhetorical. It's called a rhetorical question, rhetorical pattern. But I think, again, Americans were very uncomfortable if we have to pause. And I try to train people before they go overseas when they're doing business, put questions out there. Let them sit. Let people formulate their answers. Ensure that they even understood, first of all. And if you don't get the answer you want, don't press them. Let them write it. Make sure you take a break, maybe even email it to them. A lot of cultures, as we said before, a lot of countries, a lot of cultures, they can read and write better than they can listen and speak. And so what we want to do is we want you to have successful strategies to clarify or confirm information. So write it down. You could even write it on a butcher board or whiteboard or blackboard, and you could have them write answers. Especially if you're going to have question and answer. How do question and answer go over in a lot of cultures? Anybody have any questions? Cheep, 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 cheep. That's a cricket. That's my cricket sound. Nobody says anything, do they? Because a lot of cultures, again, they will not be singled out. They will not ask a question. I don't care if it was a life and death question, they're not going to ask it in a public setting like this. Just not going to ask it. And even the cricket sound makes me think of something. Can you see how my brain works here? You guys tracking with me? Are you picking up what I'm laying down? But even in other cultures, in China, do you know how a dog barks? It's very easy, right? How does a dog bark? Ruff, ruff. Right. How's it bark in China? Long, long. Does. Just speaking. I had a Chinese in my last cross-cultural presentation. Everybody thought it was a plant. Could you believe that I would plant somebody? I didn't. And I said, hey, how's a dog sound? He stood up and said, wong wong. And everybody's like, what in the world? It's better than me telling you. You can't buy that stuff. But, even things that are very, very simple, daily life, you're going along and people are going, here, wong wong, wong wong. And you're going, what in the world is going on? Just different. Not right and wrong, not good and bad. Shouldn't make value judges on other people's cultures, their paradigm, what they believe, how they act, even how they look, as we went back to that thing. And we have to understand that while America may think we control international commerce and trade and we got the corner on everything, we don't. We still need to adapt. We still need to develop strategies that help us work and deal internationally effectively. Or we can just keep doing what we're doing and see how it works out for us. And that's why a lot of companies do come to us to have them help them with, even to help them with their motivation. Can tell I'm very quiet, I'm very shy, so I come in companies and I say, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be motivated today. We're going to have a very motivational speech. And I'm just a quiet guy. So if you need me to speak, I'll come and do that for your organization too. Then knowledge, hopefully, like I said, we help you develop more of the knowledge, more of the tips and tricks and things. And again, if you do a 1 hour cross-cultural training, it's like playing piano and practicing piano for 1 hour. I'm not sure that you're going to get to Carnegie Hall or the Kennedy Center. But you might get to, like a 6-year-old recital and go, dee, dee, There's a lot to learn. There is a lot to learn about dealing cross-culturally or even with specific cultures. And the more we interact, the more we keep our mind open, the more we ask questions, the more we develop, the more we're opening ourselves up, the better we are on an international stage. And then, our metacognition will change. Trust me, it will change as you're interacting with other people. And then our behavior changes because of that. So how does it impact you? How are you growing your business? Who are your diverse customers? How do you serve them differently? And how does your behavior change? I'll just let you answer some of those questions. We'll take a short break so you guys can, if you need to go out and take a smoke break or comb your hair, I know I need to, and then we'll come back and do another hour or so. All right. Thank you. Any questions?